Oh my gosh, what is up, dude? What are you doing in my house?
I got invited here.
You got invited
Yeah.
here. Hey, listen, we're
By
going to
none
talk.
other than James Madison Audits.
That's right. So we're going to talk about something crazy today. I know you've heard about it. You said you watched my video, but Chief Robert Vincent with the Gulfport Police Department decides he's going to take a swing at the First Amendment here and try and knock it out. Did you see what's going on?
Yeah, I watched your video last night, as a matter of fact. And as soon as I watched it, I called you. It was like midnight, right?
It was
We actually
midnight.
talked like 1 o'clock, midnight in the morning. And yeah, it's very problematic what these municipalities
Yeah.
in Florida are trying to do. They're trying to prevent people from exercising their right to document what public officials do on our behalf and our expense.
Yeah, and what a lot of people don't realize is there's a man that was over in Gulfport that got messed with by the police. He had a food cart and he felt that he was being discriminated against. And he became what they're calling is the First Amendment auditor, going in there and doing different things. He was charged with some stuff. But now what he's doing, this chief is saying that anybody that comes in with a camera that's going to be recording in the police department is going to be subject to trespass now because they're making 13 rules, which none of them say. Recording, they say like disruption, smoking, using tobacco products. But his stance at the council meeting was that of no one's going to be videotaping in my police department.
Correct. I saw the video. I saw the chief talking about that, and he's working in cahoots with the city council and the city attorney. And their goal is obviously to prevent us, the public, from recording our interactions with our public employees.
Right. Could you imagine like an agency that doesn't have body cameras, which I think that they do, but if you want to go in and make a complaint or just go in and report something and they creatively write a report that is contrary to what you told them, and the next thing you know is you don't have any documentation of it, so whose word wins over yours? The police always do.
Right.
So, and that's what's detrimental to this. But what's funny, if you didn't get a chance to catch that, I'm sure you did because you know explicitly what a traditional public forum is. And I just couldn't, hearing the words coming out of his mouth and having the council ask him what a traditional public forum is, these are the people that establish those rules and rights for public forums, and they don't even know what it is.
They don't. The chief of police was standing in the city council public meeting chambers, and he referred to, well, he did like this, he motioned to the city council chambers as a traditional public forum. Well, the city council chambers is not a traditional public forum. It's a limited public forum.
Yeah, and as far as I know, like limited means by time, manner, place. You can't go up there in the middle of Resolution 1 and say, I don't like what the police department's doing. They can say, sir, you need to sit down. That's limiting your speech at that point in time, and they're able to do it because they have public participation.
Right. In the public meetings where this chief is referring to it as a traditional public forum is complete nonsense, because you can't go into a public meeting and protest. You can't go into a public meeting and disrupt the public meeting. You can't go into the public meeting and just speak whenever you want to. There's a lot of times for public comment. However, what you can do at a public meeting is you have the absolute right to record, and you have an absolute right to be there.
Yeah.
And it's a limited public forum. It's a limited public forum, but you still have the absolute right to record.
And when you say you can't protest, you can't go in there and hold signs. I've seen it where mayors have said like, hey, you need to put your sign down, you're causing a disruption in there. So their rules of decorum cause that. So you can go into a council meeting and wear a shirt that says fuck the police because there's a court case in California, Cohen versus California, right?
Right. Cohen v. California.
But that wasn't at a council meeting. That was, I think, do you know where that was done?
That was actually in a courthouse, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So in a courthouse, and is obviously not a traditional public forum. It's I wouldn't even say it's a limited public forum, is it? It's a non-traditional
I
public
think
forum.
it's a non-traditional because like federal buildings, they're non-public forums. Some of the courts have ruled you can't just randomly go in there and protest and do things like that.
Right.
So yeah, so when this police chief is saying that a council meeting is a traditional, well, he said it by, I guess you could say by omissions. He says everything else is a traditional public forum. I don't understand how this guy even has a job. He doesn't even know what he's doing. And what you touched on, he was colluding with this city attorney to find ways to make this defensible.
And this chief was saying these things that are completely incorrect on his interpretation of what a public forum is, after he had already colluded and cooperated with this city attorney.
And no one corrected him.
And he's not a patrol officer. He's not a low-level officer. This is the chief of police.
The final decision maker.
Yeah, who has no clue, obviously, by his own words in a public meeting, what the traditional public forum is or a non-traditional public forum.
Yeah.
You know.
Would you go in there with your God Bless the Homeless sign in the police department?
Well, actually, I went to a city council meeting in Jacksonville, and they were debating on passing a law criminalizing homelessness, criminalizing panhandling. What they did, and now they've done it, is they criminalize giving to panhandlers, and they criminalized panhandling in Jacksonville. So I went in there and I had my God Bless Homeless Veteran sign, and they told me I couldn't have it. So what I did is I put the sign away. I had a shirt on over my bottom shirt. I took my top shirt off, and my bottom shirt had the exact, not just God Bless Homeless written on it, but the photograph,
cardboard sign
of that sign on the shirt. So, you know, I could still stand there with a shirt.
See, that's what, everything that you could think of, like for instance, if you're not aware of yours, where this came from the 70s and 80s and the civil rights movement, this public forum rules, like traditional, limited, and non-public. That came from civil rights just from the 1970s, and they're still chipping away trying to find out what they can do. Nothing at a police department is private. When you walk in there, you give up your rights to privacy when you start making a police report. If you don't give them your ID, they're not going to take a police report. And that's what's scary about that. Even if they don't have body cameras, all the written documentation in the report is there, including your name, your date of birth, with the exception of social security number if they decide to redact it. So when these officers or this chief here, Robert Vinson, when he's sitting here saying, well, what if a rape victim comes in here? That's absurd. You can still get the information. You just have to wait 30, 60, 90 days or whatever it is. It's not like you can't get it at all.
Right, and they're not going to interview a rape victim out in the public lobby of the police department. They're going to take them back into a private room and interview them and collect evidence and things that they need.
Yeah, and likely 9 times out of 10, a rape victim doesn't come to the police department anyway. They call from their home because they're afraid to go there. The last thing they want to do is be out in public and be ridiculed again and seen. So everyone that we've handled said, hey, can I meet you at home? I'm not, I don't want to go to the police department.
Well, the chief in that public meeting in your video in Gulfport, Florida, the chief was given the typical gaslighting rhetoric. He says auditors shove their cameras in people's faces. I've never seen an auditor shove a camera in somebody's face, but me personally, I've never shoved a camera in anybody's face, but I've always had people say that I am doing that, and I'm not doing it. He also says that auditors film over people's shoulders as they're filling out their social security number and their home address, things like that. It's complete nonsense. There is absolutely nothing wrong with any citizen, not just an auditor, with any citizen going into their city hall, the public lobby of their police station, and documenting what they're doing. If they're going into the city hall to make a public records request, if they're going into the police department to get information, they should document everything that they do, film it, audio record it, and they have a right to do that.
So, there's even a court case out there. It's Smith v. Cummings. You've been to the city of Cummings, and how did that go when you were there?
City of Cummings actually went pretty good. Cummings.
Did it?
They didn't do anything to me.
Who did that?
It was Alpharetta.
Alpharetta.
Yeah.
Still the same Georgia there, so they had that.
Yeah.
Which tells me that people, generally they don't care for case law. A lot of people don't care for it. You can tell them. Police departments around here. But we have the Smith v. Cummings, the most important portion of this case law up here on the screen. And what is it? You're a little bit closer, so maybe you can read it for me.
So the ruling in Smith v. Cummings, the language says, as to the First Amendment claim under Section 1983, we agree with the Smiths that they have had a First Amendment right subject to reasonable time, manner, and place restrictions to photograph or videotape police conduct. The First Amendment protects the right to gather information about what public officials do on public property, and specifically a right to record matters of public interest.
And what's public interest?
Any interaction you have with a public official, any type of business that you conduct with a public employee.
And even if it's not you...
And even if it's not a cop. It says public officials. So
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be a law enforcement officer. It could be a city employee. It could be the mosquito control. It could be the dog catcher.
Right, and even if it's not you directly subject to part of that investigation, you can still record it and document it and see what's
Right.
going on because it's a matter of public interest.
We
no
have a
matter what.
right to know what our government is doing on our behalf at our expense.
Yeah, so we do have a friend that's mutual. Let me see if we can call him. Eric McDonough. You might have heard his name, familiar with it. I cite his case all the time when I'm recording police and say Smith v. Cummings, McDonough versus Fernandez Rundle. So I don't know if let's call him and see what he says about it. You want
Sounds
to?
good, Doc Justice.
All right, so let's call Eric. We got his phone number here. Hey, Eric, what's going on? It's Jeff and James Madison here. We're in our office here doing a quick recording. Hey, I was going to ask you a quick question. There's a case out of Gulfport that is ultimately what they're doing is banning the recording in a police lobby. You tell me what you think about that.
Well, I think it probably likely violates the First Amendment.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think the same thing. What do you think, Jeff?
I agree.
Agree. So we're both in agreement. I know it's our opinion. It's not legal advice. But there's a case that you did, which is McDonough versus Fernandez Rundle. You went into a chief's office and ultimately said that you're going to, or told yourself you're going to record this because you knew it was a public meeting. Can you tell me a little bit about that too?
Yeah, so I had a meeting with Chief Roll of the Homestead Police Department, and I recorded the meeting with him, and they tried to have me prosecuted for doing that.
Wow.
And I sued the state attorney and went to the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, who found that the state's threatened prosecution had no basis in the law. I think more important to the issue you're looking at, Smith v. City of Cummings is more on point. As Billy said, as to the First Amendment claim under Section 1983, we agree with the Smiths. They had a First Amendment right subject to reasonable time, manner, and place restrictions to photograph or videotape police conduct. And it doesn't appear to me that a blanket restriction against recording is a reasonable time, manner, or place restriction.
Yeah, and see, that's what I agree with what he's saying. And we actually just read that there, which is crazy because we just brought it up right before we called you. But the other thing I was going to say is, like, with police, what do you think that when you do anything with the police department, is there anything that is subject to privacy with them?
No conversation that you're going to have with a police officer do I think you would have a reasonable expectation of privacy there. As if it was a recording or a document, obviously they're supposed to redact things like social security numbers, but the contents of your conversation themselves aren't necessarily private. And Department of Agriculture versus Edwards out of the First Florida District Court of Appeals held that basically due to the open government and government and sunshine provisions of the Florida Constitution and Florida law, no public official acting in the performance of official duties has an expectation of privacy.
Wow. But in your case specifically, I'm going to segue into that and then pull back to this recording in the lobby. Your case, you were secretly recording or surreptitiously recording in the police chief's office there, and I think that would be very strict on some time, manner, place restrictions. But yeah, tell me about that too.
The arguments were that I was secretly or surreptitiously recording, but I showed him the cell phone and showed him that I was recording. I guess he just forgot and ran his big mouth.
Yeah, so if you can technically record in the chief's office and not have any repercussions for it because he's a public official, no expectation of privacy, surreptitiously recording, don't you think, and Jeff, you might agree too, that like recording in the lobby is a very public area, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so what do you think about that, recording in the lobby based off of what McDonough versus Fernandez Rundle says?
That's a good argument. There's some other issues that come into play. Like the First Amendment doesn't grant you right to access.
Right.
It's about access. Where you don't necessarily have the right to access the chief's office, I would presume you have a right to access the police lobby.
Eric, I don't want to hold you up anymore. We're going to get you off the phone. Jeff and I are going to finish this up because we're probably at a good amount of time here. I appreciate you letting me talk to you here.
Thank you, sir. God bless.
Yeah, and basically cold calling him. He's got an echo chamber here. What's exactly going on? That's crazy. So I don't know, man. I don't understand what these agencies are doing. What do you think? What's going on?
Well, I think it's an absurd argument that we as citizens can't go into a public lobby, even if it's not considered a traditional public forum like the public sidewalk. Of course, a citizen has a right to go into the public lobby of a public building during normal business operating hours,
Right,
and document interactions that they have with their public employees who are operating on our behalf and our expense.
And I agree with you too. It's like when I go in there, the only reason why I go to record is to protect myself and make sure that what I'm doing there, documenting my public records request or even a complaint with an officer. And even if I do get in there and go into the police department to, which it wastes so much time, no one does that, to sit in the lobby to wait for people to come in and start talking. I go there, and sometimes you do hear things that are going on, and I immediately do a public records request. Hey, can I get a case number for that person's information there? Don't bother those people. I ask the police department, and they're like, well, what do you need that for? They want to hide everything in secrecy when Florida's supposed to be the Sunshine State, but almost all these agencies put a lot of shade over the area.
They want to operate like they're the secret police. They want to operate like they're the secret government. There should never be a problem with a citizen or even the government employee themselves documenting the interaction that they're having. That should be put out there. It should be published. It should be known to the public how the interactions and how our government is operating.
Yeah, and I think the same, like exactly that. It's like I walk up to a police officer like, how much do you make an hour? What other job can you do when it's not a public official? No one will tell you. Oh, I don't really want to talk to you about that. But you know what the police do? They'll say like, well, I don't really want to tell you that. But you go to ask the clerk, and they're like, oh, he makes $15.75 an hour. It's just the way it is in that when you take a job in public, it's why I stay in the private sector. When you take a job in public, you open yourself up to the scrutiny of all the citizens.
So, James Madison, Audits, let me ask you a question. Do you believe that we have the right to go into City Hall and form a big protest and chant and hold signs inside City Hall?
No.
But we can do that outside City Hall on the public sidewalk.
Steps, you can do it on the sidewalk, because that's what's the idiom. I don't know if it's an idiom, but the steps of City Hall. That's the traditional public forum. No, I would never go into to city halls. I wouldn't go into any of these places, even the police department, to do that. There's not a reason.
No reasonable person would believe that, right?
No.
But is it reasonable for a citizen, not even an auditor, just a regular citizen, to go into City Hall during normal business operating hours and audio and video record their interaction that they have with public employees?
Yeah, but these people want to stop that. So if they don't want to, what is being said or heard or the officer's behavior, they can tell you to stop and kick you out now.
Well, how does that make you feel? Does it make you feel like they're transparent?
Like a tinted window.
Does it make you feel like maybe they have something to hide?
Yeah, of course. I mean, anybody that wants to not tell the whole truth or nothing but the truth or provide information, just like when I was down at the police department here a minute ago, there's allegations of misconduct going on between a male and a female officer on duty, and I'm detecting that there was some deception in it.
Have you as yourself, have you ever gone into a public building, City Hall, whatever it may be, to make a public records request and had them call the cops on you for doing that?
Yes.
While you're recording?
Yes.
Isn't that absurd?
Because they're saying that I'm making a disturbance.
Yeah, they create the disturbance. They always create disturbance.
I'm holding my camera here like this. It's pointing towards them. It's kind of not like out here in their face. It's here, just up there, and I'm talking like I normally do. And they say, "Are you recording me?" And as soon as they say you're recording me, I don't lie to them. I don't hide it and be like, "Yeah, I'm definitely am. I'm documenting my thing." Well, I don't want you recording me. And then they start storming off and go tell their supervisor, and then the supervisor comes out, "Sir, you're causing a disturbance." Mm-hmm. Yes.
Then they call the police. They say he's in here shoving his camera in my face. He's causing disturbance. Cops come and they trespass you. And is there anything that you can think of that is more of a matter of public interest than the process of submitting a public records request and receiving public records from your public employees?
Absolutely. They're supposed to give you an automatic response that says we receive your public record. They don't usually, but going in there, that's a Florida statute provision that permits us to come in there anonymously and do it. The Florida Constitution allows you to do it. Every person in Florida is considered a member of the press. And when they do that to you, it's like they just, I don't know if they can't control their behavior, but yeah, it's another fundamental right to be able to access and get documents.
But they want to stop that.
They want to stop it.
Yeah, they want to make it illegal to do that.
And if they don't want to give it to you, what do?
Well, they give you the runaround. There's all kinds of things they do. They give you the runaround. They call the police on you. They trespass you.
Charge you an arm and a leg for it.
Charge you an arm and a leg for it. Make you wait forever for it.
Yeah.
They say that we play games and we enforce our civil rights, but they're the ones that are playing the games most of the time.
Exactly, and every time that you do that, the camera doesn't lie, right? Mm-hmm. And no matter what it is, one of the things that would be very clear evidence is if you walk in there without a camera and you go and do the public records request, and then you walk in there and do the same exact public records request, you can't theoretically do it because they'll be tipped off to it, but the difference in the variable would be them freaking out about the camera, and that's it.
Right. The only factor there that they're freaking out about is that you're recording, documenting the interaction. Because, like you're saying, you could go in and make a public records request. They don't know you're recording. And you may be recording. You may be secretly recording with, say, my Apple Watch.
Yeah.
And they won't freak out. But if they see that you're recording, they proceed to freak out. They proceed to cause a disturbance. They call the police. The police come and wind up trespassing you from public property for doing something that in the state of Florida is a civil right.
Right.
A public records access in the state of Florida is a civil right.
Correct. DeLand did this too over here. I don't know if you saw that. DeLand put up a sign that said that. You know what I did? Instead of going in there with a camera like they were saying to show how stupid this is, because no one was going to sit in there all day long with a camera, I went in with a notepad and a piece of paper, stood right next to the window, and was jotting down every note, every phone call that came in, everything like that, and wrote it down on what was there. People come in, "Hi, my name is Sally Smith. I'm here for an interview. Sally Smith interview, 12 to 15. And I wrote down everything they were doing to show and prove a point. I was there for about 40 minutes. But that's not what they accuse us of doing. They accuse us of sitting in there with a camera and doing exactly what I was doing with a piece of paper, which none of us do that I've ever
Right.
seen.
Well, and one of the things that I want to also bring up is a lot of these public buildings. You go into the police department. Typically, a nice-sized police department, they have displays of historic artifacts, historic articles, documents, things like that, mounted on the walls or in display cases. A lot of these city halls are historic city halls. They're basically museums.
Right.
And they're trying to prevent us from being able to even go into a historic city hall or a historic police department and just take pictures or take video of these historic artifacts and documents. It's just the craziest thing. I don't understand why they think that they can operate in secrecy in America. Well, let me ask you this. Is passing these city ordinances going to stop you from exercising your right to document what public officials do on our behalf and our expense?
Not at all. And if they arrest me, I'm going to go after them.
Yeah.
If they charge me, I'm going to go after them. Even before that, there may be an opportunity to go after them and put a prohibition, a writ of prohibition, I think it is, against it and saying they're violating the law. It's constitutionally vague, and yeah, it's not going to pass the constitutional muster, I think they say.
So rest assured, James Madison, Audits, and Jeff Gray of Honor Your Oath are going to be out there fighting this every step of the way.
That's what we do.
Yeah, we'll make them our new hobby.
That's it, new hobby. Well, thank you guys for watching. This is Honor Your Oath here. Everybody knows him. He has probably the same group of subscribers that I do. We live in the same area. We're going to head out right now and do some panhandling stuff. I've got my big camera.
What's going on here in Port Orange with panhandling?
Oh my gosh, Port Orange, what they're doing is they are ticketing people that are handing people money or ticketing the people that are asking for money. There was a woman and a child that was at an intersection over here at one of the shopping centers. And I walked up directly to the cop after he issued the ticket to her it was like a $150 ticket for asking for money. I handed her money. And then I turned to Officer Poor Man Velez there and said, hey, give me some money. Got some money, Velez? Can I get $10? Can I get $5? And he didn't issue me a ticket.
Imagine what kind of a low-life dirtbag you got to be to give somebody a citation who's asking for help.
Yeah, and he says there are these people that run around and go all around to the cities, and all they do is they scam people. They bring the kid out there for sympathy, but it's not up to you, the police officer. It's not up to me watching it to say what you want to do. I have to stay out of your business. If you want to walk up there and throw your money away at them, by all means.
Next time we see that officer, what's his name?
Officer Edward Velez. Well, that's it for this one here. We need to get out there in the hot baking sun. Thanks for watching this one here. I'll see you again soon. Ready? Let's do it.